welcome to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst radio network. All past shows are available in podcast form. You can pick them up at ArtistFirst.com. We always welcome your questions and comments. Email us dj@ArtistFirst.com. Now here they are, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
And thank you very much, Z-Man. And we are Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Here we are.
I hate those echo leads, but I do them all the time. I'm getting good at them.
All right.
And tonight's show, in this joyful season of the end of the year here and Christmas and Advent and all that stuff, we're going to talk about, like the Soul of the Airman always does, sorrow. but I would contend that in all the joy of this season, oftentimes people's sorrow is magnified, and the take we want to have on this, though, is and we'll talk a little bit more about it as we get into it. But the take we want to have on it is though that the feeling of sorrow, the feeling of separation, the feeling of loss, and perhaps the memories of those that you may have lost, loved ones that you've lost in the past, is something which is which we all know is kind of rooted in the temporal. It's rooted in the physical, and I think the issue that many people kind of struggle with is that part of you, maybe the greater part of you, tells you that it's not real, that the sorrow, which is a physical expression of this emotion of this experience of loss and of this experience of separation, is confined to the temporal, and is confined to, it's bounded by the body. And then, your mind says no, or your spirit says no, your soul says no. This is not the case, and we know it to be true at that level. But there's this war, or rather this dichotomy between the two, and it creates a tension, perhaps even a bifurcation between the parts of you which exist here, the parts of you which are temporal and exist here, the soul which is incarnate within the temporal body, the spirit above. It starts to kind of show the gaps, or the bridges, or the connections among the three. And so that was our topic. We wanted to go kind of into the root of this feeling of sorrow.
Right. Well, when especially family gatherings or events occur, you always look around and say, someone's missing. This is after you've lost someone. It's like, it's not the same. Someone is missing. Because the thing about family gatherings, the tendency is to believe it's going to be the exact same thing that happened the last time. So if you had some bad experience during Thanksgiving because you had to sit next to cousin somebody who won't let you speak or has a very strong opinion about something, you're sitting there thinking, not again.
Right. It's a slight amount of dread.
Yes. Or, you're going to see, oh, great, I'm going to see that person in my family that I only see on Thanksgiving or Christmas. And I think the introduction to the fact that that's not possible, especially in the times we're living, where you can't have large gatherings, that there's the beginning, that the door begins to open to that feeling of it's different. I can't see them. And of course, depending on the person, it's yay or oh no, sad. But when you've really lost someone and there is an empty space, especially around the table, they should be there. If there's something about gathering for a meal, no matter who you are, it just bounds you together. But when there's an empty space, it's a hollowness. I don't know how else to explain it. And that hollowness, you can sit there and try to reason yourself into normalcy, but that doesn't work. Your brain, your mind wants to say, oh, well, you know what happened. Yeah, you do. But that doesn't soothe that unsettled would be a mild way of putting it. Just wrong. There's a wrongness.
I want to go back just a little bit. What you said about gathering around the table is exactly right. And I think the parallel is because when we gather around the table, we are communally assuaging a need of the body. We need to eat. And when we eat with others, there's a bond there. You have a bond, and it's really at the temporal physical level, the bond of family and community and of the sharing of sustenance amongst a group, no matter who they are. You take any unrelated group of people and you sit them down in a room, and they're an unrelated group of people. But then you feed them, or you organize it so that everyone is in little tables and groups, and you put food in front of them, and all of a sudden it becomes, regardless of who they are, a little family. It's a little gathering, a little community. You talk, you share. Oh, that looks lovely, that looks good. Oh, how does it taste? Oh, I love this kind of. Blah, blah. This instantly becomes a relationship of the body, and so this is why, as you said, the missing portion, the missing person, the missing physical presence is magnified.
Yes. And it's very difficult to explain that unless you've really experienced it in some degree, And I believe that that's what's been happening, is since the gatherings have been either pared down or some places it's just singular, that lack of connection can really hit. And it adds to that feeling of isolation. You're isolated from others. And that's not our natural state.
No.
Not at all. We weren't meant to be isolated like that.
I would also go back just one more step. Is we're talking about sorrow, and we're talking about the root of sorrow, and if we talk about hunger, the root of hunger is an absence. It's an absence of food, of sustenance. The root of sorrow in the body is an absence. It is something which you need from that person, which is their presence and the relationship, the energy exchange. And I don't mean to say that people are like food, because that's Soylent Green and it's bad. Soylent Green is people, but we're not going there. What we're going to is that the relationship with a person is on, let's say, all three levels. Maybe it's more than that, but at least it's on the body level, it's on the soul level, it's on the spirit level. You don't have that relationship with food. Food is generally a body level and relationship, amongst community, but it's at the body level, it's at the physical level. But the analog, the sorrow, the root of sorrow, which is in this physical, is this loss at the body level relationship with this person. You feel the loss of their physical presence, their voice, their touch, their look, the things they used to say or do, and many, many, many other things. This evokes this, it's almost a hunger for that person, and this hunger can't be satisfied in any other way than to see them. And when you've lost someone that's very dear and very close, the ache is at that level. It's in your core. You hunger so much for them. You feel as though your own body has been injured, or you feel, and this has been borne out by many studies, the broken heart syndrome. You feel physical pain, and there is physical damage, physical effects. The rise in stress hormones, the rise in some forms, in some broken heart syndromes, you actually see the same enzymes that occur when someone has a heart attack, when they don't have any physical infarction or any physical damage, but that damage is at the heart level. It's showing up in the bloodstream. It's showing up in the body. So this I think is the root of that sorrow. It really is a hunger.
Well, what we had always said to Christopher, because this was a conversation we had when he was going through his trials, and we were talking about loving somebody. Basically, it has to do with relationships. He was 5 years old at the time.
Right.
So he asked a question about love. What happens with love? Because we were seeing relationships being skewed when we were in the cancer wards. Certain kids not coming back. And so he was wondering, well, what does that do to a relationship? And this is speaking in terms of adults. So to begin to explain what relationship is, Grace came in and it went like this. Oh, Chris, do you know what happens when you love someone? You take that person and you put them here in your heart. And when you put them in your heart, they're there forever. So he thought about that for a little bit. Forever in your heart. Then we expanded it a bit and said, do you know how it's possible for Mommy to know what you like what you like to eat, or what you'd like to play with? And he thought, it's like, no, how do you know?
What magic is this?
Some variation of eyes in the back of your head. Must be, right?
Must be.
Well, the response was, when I find something that I think you'll like, I ask the Christopher inside of my heart whether or not you'll like it. And he tells me. And it's that back and forth that defines a relationship. When you've put someone in your heart, you understand who they are because you love them as they are. You're not trying to change them. That's the other thing. That's not an unconditional love. Unconditional love loves the person, not the circumstances. And that was the beginning of explaining how relationships function. And when they're no longer there physically, you do refer back to your heart, but your body aches just to be able to reach out and touch them.
Mm.
And you don't realize how deep that longing is because you've been able to do it ever since they were infants. But when you're no longer capable of reaching out and touching the soft, warm person living and breathing, it tears at you at a very basic level, and just sorrow rises up like a flood.
Yes.
And that's when your connection to your spirit counts. Because going into your heart, you're speaking to your soul and your spirit. You've already established that connection and multiple events that have happened between the two of you. And that's what you hang on to.
Mm.
That's the eternal.
There's so much in what you just said, and it's beautiful. But if you go back, when you were explaining that to Christopher, you started out explaining it in terms of the body, in terms, in fact, of what I know you'll like to eat, or what I know you'll like to play with. And that's exactly right for all of us. Incarnate here, as a child, we relate, because we are incarnate, we relate at the physical level, especially in relationship, sharing food, sharing,
Interest.
time and interest together. And then you expanded it into, in essence, taking from the physical and putting someone into your heart. What you're putting into your heart is obviously not a little, simulacrum of them, but you're putting into your heart, which is, again, the connection of the body. Now, all you anatomists out there, we're not talking about the actual heart, okay? But the connection of the body, the physical, we often think of it as through the heart, through that heart chakra, into at least the soul and into the spirit. So the connection there is where this interface between the soul and the incarnation reside. And you take, as you said, with the eyes of unconditional love, the person as they are to you. Again, we all have different relationships with different people. The relationship of you to someone who's never met you is minimal. The relationship of you to someone who you've given birth to is a lot different. So you bring this person as they appear in your heart, as they appear to you into your heart. And the dialogue, I think, is so important. You explained to Christopher, and we put it in his book, about this dialogue you can have with that person, because that, in essence, is sort of the way forward when they're no longer with you. You can dialogue with the person in your heart. And I think too often people kind of say, well, I know it's not real, but I want to do it anyway. They have conversations with somebody that is not there, and they say, well, I know I'm crazy, but I want to do it anyway. Well, you're not crazy. You're not crazy at all. That dialogue is as real as the one you just described. Well, they're still physically present. You're talking to someone who's not there. They happen to be, a few miles away, perhaps, or just not in the room. But yet you're able to dialogue with that portion of them that you placed into your heart. And that, as you said, is the doorway from the physical through this interface into the soul and into the spirit. And I think why we feel, of course, I'll say it, of course, that the shattering loss of somebody, especially in the acute phase, is physical pain, soul pain, spirit pain. It's pain. But then why we feel that we, that we can, through this doorway, access that person is because that's the relationship. And if you start there while they're still alive, it becomes more it becomes something that you have come to rely upon, and then will soften the eventual loss, because we lose everybody eventually, or we ourselves are gone. The eventual loss by saying, well, I've already got this relationship through the heart with this person. I know where they reside in me. I know where they reside in me. And nothing can break that.
Well, you have to mourn that break and that change in the relationship.
Yes.
It's not easy. All right, we can discuss it. But to experience it is not easy. And you're going to have good days and bad days. It's just the way it is. Until you can get past that point of rawness and immediacy and focus on the eternal connection and the future. Because the body itself is not really thinking in terms of future. It's more of an immediate thing. So it's saying, now, I can't touch him now. What do you mean?
Right.
And that response takes time, takes patience, and to acknowledge the pain of the ability of what has been taken away, and to be able to embrace that eternal connection. And this is where the mind can help by disciplining itself to look at the eternal now, as opposed to looking only at what can no longer be. It's not easy, because unless the emotions are allowed to rise up and be expressed, it will always come back to that. It's as simple as that. You must be able to let go of that wave, that tidal wave that comes through you, but also understand that you are not the tidal wave, because danger comes in by identifying yourself with the emotion that is running through you. You are not that. You are so much more.
Interesting, because again, emotion is of the body. And we've talked about this many times in the past, but to kind of encapsulate it, that your emotional body threatens, or your emotional energy is what drives, it provides you your power. Your power here in the physical comes through emotions which are guided by thought, let's say. But to try to live all in the mental is a futile pursuit, and to allow emotion to run wild and rampant through you is also futile. To identify yourself by your emotions. When people say I am anger, I am angry, it's such a
I feel angry.
Yes, it is so much different when you say I feel angry, and I'm going to be angry for a while, and then it's going to go away, because that's what emotions do. But if you say I am angry, you are saying right now you are dealing not with all of me, you're dealing with angry me, and that can become not only defining, but we don't want to go down that road. It's a long road. But the important point is just what you just said. The body, the physical pain and loss and emotions that rise up from that must be acknowledged, and they must be honored, and you must go through them. And here's something that we've learned over many, many years, and don't let any soul on this earth, including yourself, which is really the worst one, tell you how long you've got to grieve, or how much it should hurt, or any of those things. There are no limits here. There is just the experience. And for some, it may be shorter, and for some, it may be lifetimes. Don't limit it. You'll know, again, through the heart, you'll know when you've reached another point in your grief. But the first point is acute. It's pain. It's loss. And it's important. It, as you said, it needs to be honored. It needs to be. You
Expressed.
must, right? You must express it, but also, I guess, listen to it. But it's really allow it. People try to, in essence, it's so painful. You want to disconnect from that pain, and sure, that's okay. You can take a break. You know, you have to sleep, you have to eat, you have to cry, and then stop crying for a little while. But this idea that you could just bottle it all up and not feel it, numb yourself out, busy yourself with every little thing, no, because it's there, and unacknowledged grief is as toxic as radiation, as poison. It will destroy you. It will destroy anybody.
Yes, it can, but making space for it. And truth is, you can't just, and the people who are really grieving understand this, you just can't grieve in front of anybody, because it's so devastating that people just start running away. And they don't know what to do. And you're just like, I don't need the additional burden of you fluttering around me trying to figure out what to do. I need to find a place where I can just release this, build a space for this. And it can be done, but you have to make the decision that you're going to get through this. And truth is, you already know this is not going to be a pleasant experience, okay? That goes right out the door. It's like, no, this is something I've got to do, because if I don't release it, it will eat me alive inside. And I've other people I've got to care for or help experience, or there is responsibility and reliance on me. So I have to find a way.
Yeah, it's true, very true. And that is one of the roots of sorrow, is that you will get through it. But let's take a little break. Let's go back to the studio and hear a couple of commercials. On the other side, we'll talk more about this idea of the root of our physical sorrow.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Bragg Medallion as well as the Reader's Favorite Silver Medal for Memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
Attention soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and coasties. The holiday season is right around the corner. And some of you might be wondering, how am I going to afford to travel back home to visit my loved ones? Have no fear. Holidays for the Heroes is here. Last year, Holidays for the Heroes received donations from patriotic donors, and we were able to send 65 armed service members with a fully paid round-trip ticket and got them home for the holidays. Wait, but what's the catch, you might ask? Buckle your parachute strap. There is no catch and no hidden fees. Just contributions from good old-fashioned Americans who want to help heroes like you and show their appreciation for your service. If you're an active soldier and want to register, or an individual who wants to be a part of that growing group of patriotic donors, please go to www.holidaysfortheheroes.org. That's www.holidaysfortheheroes.org.
Rick Riordan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lyons is book 1 of the adventures of Dev Kalian, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword Betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel, It's in the Blood, available for a limited time. The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lyons, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. The wait is over. First Blood, Book 2 of the Blood series is out. Your favorite bad boy thief Dev is back, and the beautiful and deadly Trey is right there with him. She is sharp, sexy, and full of surprises. Their adventures continue as a new power arises to threaten the world. The heart of creation is under attack, and time is definitely not on their side, as they battle against their enemies' undead hordes. Can they unlock the hidden power that can defeat him, or will his forces draw first blood? Get all 3 installments in the series. Book 0, It's in the Blood. Book 1, Destroyer's Blood, and the new release, Book 2, First Blood, today. Available in ebook and paperback format on Amazon, Kobo, Apple, and most other fine e-tailers.
Listening to the Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Back to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, D-Man. And yes, welcome to the second half of the Soul of the Everyman. And tonight we're talking about the root of sorrow. And if you missed the first half hour, it has nothing to do with Valerian or any of those other things. This really has to do with sort of the visceral connection, rather the visceral effect, the effect on our bodies, which is caused by the loss of someone who we loved. And there's a lovely quote that we didn't put in, which basically says that to the degree that you grieve is really just unexpressed love, or love that you can't express to that person anymore, coming out of your eyes or out of your soul. But we do have, if you're willing to read it, we do have a very lovely quote from Oscar Wilde, who was really a prolific and wonderful writer and poet, and he expresses it beautifully.
His quote, Oscar Wilde: "Where there is sorrow, there is holy ground."
And it's so succinct, and if you have to think about it a little bit, but in essence, our sorrow is a blessing. It is a way of, in essence, sanctifying our presence here, and also the environment which we are in. Sacred ground or holy ground evokes, let's say that lovely passage in the Old Testament where Moses is talking to the burning bush, and one of the first words is, "Remove your sandals, for the ground upon which you walk is holy ground," or sacred ground. But our sorrow, our grief, is a expression in the physical which affects our environment. You said it last half hour, that the space that you have to make, you have to give to yourself for your sorrow, is important, and you can't do that sometimes with just anybody. There are people who are strong enough and grounded enough to whom which you can express your sorrow at the deepest levels, and almost invariably those people have themselves experienced great sorrow, and they've learned from it. They've taken that experience in, and now they understand that holding space for someone else who's learning to do it, who's going through that process, is a beautiful service. But that space that you hold is the sacred ground.
Yes. Holy ground was always, as in the Bible, you are in the presence of God. You are in the presence of the eternal. Remove your shoes. And if you think about that, it's like, wait, why must I remove my shoes? Wouldn't it be better if my shoes were on?
Keeping your dirty feet off the holy ground.
Yeah, no, seriously, you're just like, well, why am I removing my shoes? And it's like, because the contact must be as pure as possible. Nothing in between you and that which is sacred. It's also understanding that it is the ground of your existence. You as you are expected to come as you are, not dressed up in any way, shape, or form.
So true.
So it is the purity of who you are that must come and stand before He who is your God.
It's so beautiful, because God accepts us. God knows us as we are. If you think about who has all of us in his or her or its heart, God has us all in His heart. But the striking thing about that is that removing the barrier between your flesh and the holy ground is imperative. It's command.
It's a command.
Your flesh must touch the physical you, the naked you that was actually incarnate, not all the things you drape upon yourself,
right,
and the rings and the clothes and all. No, your flesh has to contact the holy ground. And just as in sorrow, all those other things are stripped away. Nothing matters anymore. Your position, your clothing, your jewelry, whatever it is, it's all stripped away by sorrow. And you must accept yourself as you are in that point, as well as understand that it isn't you, but but it is a very essential part of you that has to accept the loss.
Well, the reality. You're touching sacred ground, sacred space as a reality. And what matters in that is your heart-to-heart relationship. It's what we've talked about previously, about going through experiences that ring so true that they are written in eternity. If you look at it in terms of your heart, these experiences are written in your heart, and they cannot be taken away. Your heart is broken because the physical touch is no longer possible. But what has been written in eternity is there forever. Your relationship is there forever. So, walking in the presence of the eternal is holy ground. It's sacred space that you participate in. And by the way, it doesn't mean that you're only having happy, happy, joy, joy feelings in sacred space. Sacred space goes past all of that. The joy that is felt is way past happiness, and the peace that is there is beyond words. And that is where your ground actually is. I feel that's the reason why you must remove your shoes. It's interesting because I know that when the Israelites were in the desert and they set up the tent, which is supposed to be the holy space for God.
The talit, yes.
Well, the big tent.
Yeah.
Not just the talit that they put over their heads.
Well, the one represents the other, but yes, go right ahead.
Okay, but that, when there was only one person allowed in there, and that was the high priest. And they had always put bells on his ankle, and he was barefoot when he went in.
Right.
Because if he did something to offend God and he died in there, they wouldn't know if he was dead or not. So they would always listen to hear if he was moving around by the sound of the bells. If the bells stopped and there was nothing, they had a rope tied around his leg, and they would pull his carcass out of there.
Right.
Because he transgressed.
Right.
But the idea, just a side story, I thought it was interesting. But the idea is to understand that you are constantly walking in God's presence, and you must be grounded in that reality of the eternal.
So let's go up from there. So from the root of sorrow, we have a loss. We bring this person. We have brought this person into our heart. We have that relationship still. And you're right. From there, you have to go up. You're on sacred ground, and the sacred ground of the heart, in this case, is the interface.
Right.
So go up with it.
Well, it's the understanding at this point that your humanity, your barefoot humanity, is not enough to help your brokenness. And you must reach into the space of the eternal to find the beginning of peace, the beginning of healing, the beginning of wholeness. If anything, it marks very clearly the break between body and spirit. Because if the integration is there, then the peace would be able, that divine peace would be able to fill you and sustain you. If you keep that brokenness, your physical body will die. That, what they call the broken heart syndrome, is physical repercussions of the breaking of a heart.
Right. Exactly right. But through your grief, through your sorrow, through the physical, into the heart, and then moving up, as you say, into the soul, into the spirit, you find peace, but I think you find that the relationship goes on. It's the thing that we know, but that we distrust. Unfortunately, we kind of distrust this idea that the body tells me one thing, and the soul and the spirit tell me something else, and yet we sit in the middle and go back and forth,
Mm-hmm.
because the body calls out, I'm hungry for this person. I want them. I feel terrible. All my emotions rise up, and it's this process it's not linear, nor is it completed. Christopher left us decades ago, and there are moments and days when the body cries out, and it stops you dead in your tracks without any breath, heart pounding, with the suddenness of it, because it's still there. You don't negate any piece of this. You integrate them. I'll give them all space. They're all you, or pieces of you. And it is the immediacy and the acuteness of pain that can tear you out of the balance. And it is this process. You said coming to peace, and he's right. You're coming to peace with all these pieces. You're coming to peace with the hunger of the loss, of the I want, and yet the body has to come back and say, I want, but I know. And as you said, the mind can sort of mediate it.
The peace that I'm speaking of can only be received. You can't produce it on your own. And that is received through the spirit connection.
Right.
With the eternal, with God. You can't get it any other way. You're a broken piece down here.
But I think the key word, as you said, is received. In other words, a piece of the part of you here has to receivers, receptors, things which receive things, are open vessels. Closed ones, if you stay in the temporal, if you deny everything except the physical pain, you are, as you said before, closed. The break is still there, and here you will wither and die. Here you will be in misery and pain. But then if you open, then you can receive. So you have to, and it doesn't cure anything, but it balances who you are.
Well, you begin to understand who you are.
Yes.
You have to be at a point where you're able to receive something outside of what you've considered, what you figured out, what you've always been accustomed to. It's outside your comfort zones. And the loss of someone you love is completely outside your comfort zone. Are you willing to give up the things that you always used to try to comfort yourself? Or are you willing to try something different? Something that actually will be able to ease your heart.
And it's in many ways the path of sorrow. I mean, now we're talking almost like the Buddha. The path of sorrow is the way to a form of enlightenment. It's a way of seeing that the temporal, the hunger of the body, whether it's for food or for presence, is a reflection, and a small one, of the vastness of relationship. You will feel very bad if you don't eat food. You will feel very bad when you don't have a relationship with someone at the physical that you really want to have. But you understand that food, without food your body will die, but without relationship you can still push upward. It's a different sort of hunger. the pain actually can feel almost the same. The pangs of loss are in the physical. You feel physical pain. But the relationship, because it's not an animate, it's not a hamburger to you. There's no, the relationship between you and a hamburger goes no further than you eating the hamburger. The relationship here is with another who is also as vast, as connected to spirit, as one with the eternal. And so our relationship here isn't animate to animate. It has nothing. We all know it. It has nothing to do with your physical body or what is currently your how you look or what your weight is or how tall you are, how much money you have. None of those matter at the actual relationship level. All the losses, the body, are at that level, but you can go further. There's no further relationship with the animate. There is with another incarnate spirit.
The relationship with another soul never dies.
No.
It changes. It can mature and grow, but it never dies. And that's the fascinating thing. Each person, you have formed a connection. And even though physically you may not be anywhere near each other, the connection still exists. What was it that Einstein said? Spooky action at a distance?
Yeah. Where you're entangled with that person.
Entanglement. But we are living entanglement as opposed to photon or electron spin to electron, whatever, particle. But that also, if we think about that we are made up of all that as well.
Well, I'd say that the physical reflects the eternal as it is manifestation. And certainly what we experience, what we see here in small and in things that we, I always say that to be a physicist is to believe in the invisible and untouchable. And people, but it's physics. Yeah, okay. Next time you find an electron and hold it in your finger, and between your fingers, let me know. The point I'm trying to make is that many of our relationships here with others who are vast and incarnate spirits, we know at a level beyond the mental or the physical, that this is beyond. When you have a true relationship with someone, as you say, the unconditional love doesn't say, "Well, I only love you until your hair turns from black to gray, and then that we're done," or "I only love you as long as we're able to have this kind of we can play tennis together. But as soon as you can't do that, we can't do that anymore. Oh, I don't love you anymore." No, none of that matters. Love. When we talk about love, we talk about loving someone as the vows go, till death do us part, for rich or poor, and all that means is that doesn't matter what happens to them, doesn't matter what life throws you, it doesn't even matter if they die before you do. The relationship remains, because it was never about the physical. It was always about the soul and the spirit. And the body cries out, and the soul says, still there. And it says it, and it knows it's true, and it has to help balance that back out.
I think part of the problem is the fact that the body is a creature of habit. It likes its things. It likes its ways. It's got to be a certain way.
Yes.
Whenever it's got to be a certain way, it's usually a physical thing.
Yeah.
So when it no longer can happen, when you can no longer follow the habit of, maybe you were giving vitamins to this person every morning, medication, and suddenly
Yeah.
No more.
No more.
And the change happens. Sometimes it's the small changes that hit you hardest.
I think the body doesn't like change either too much.
Well, I do remember speaking with another mother who she was basically saying that simple act of being able to put the vitamin for the breakfast in the morning, and no longer. Just she was sobbing. Because it's the little things.
Yes. And it is the little things that, this is what I was saying before, and I'm sure it happens to you and to all of us. A small, small thing. You'll go along in a fragment of a song, come on, or you'll see, you'll smell something that reminds you of whomever. These fragments blossom into full-blown grief in an instant, and you didn't even know it was there. It's just another piece that has to come up, that has to go through you, that must be experiences. It just shows you that the body is still missing them.
Mm-hmm.
But you in the mature relationship, you say, yeah, and I'm going to think about them, and I'm going to talk to them a little bit, and we're going to continue our relationship in the spirit. And it not only has to be enough, it really is all. It is what it is, and it is important. And with that, I am Michael Lyons.
We've reached the end. And I'm Margaret. Thank you for listening.